Hey, welcome back. Steve Wildman Wilson here. Trey Reed in the studio with me today. As we said in the opening there, that we're going on a brown trout fishing trip on the Little Red River. So let's go to that now where, Trey, we're actually right at Cow Shoals.
Just above Cow Shoals. Folks that know that area will probably recognize the island here in a minute or two. But, you know, Brett got on the fish right off the bat. I mean, did not take long, and you know, a lot of that's a credit to Chuck Farneth there on the left. Chuck is just knows that river very well. Is an outstanding fly fisherman as well as a great instructor. You know, and teach you not only about how to read the river, but can help with your casting. Chuck's an old buddy, so it was really a joy to be out there with them.
Let's bring up one point here too. You can see we're below the shoals, and I know a lot of people go up there and fish in the shoals, which is legal, but at the same time, these big browns this time of year are up there spawning, so we were real careful not to disturb those beds.
Right. You know, the brown trout spawning, or any trout spawning beds are called reds, R-E-D-D.
That's the bed?
That's
it's
the
called
bed.
A red?
You know, just where they clean off some gravel, and where they deposit their eggs. So, you know, if you're fishing this time of year.
Wow, that's a nice brown right there.
It is. It's a beautiful fish. You want to be really careful, you know, watch where you're wading, don't step in those reds, as well as, you know, you notice how Chuck barely handled the fish there. I mean, he just, you know, grabbed it by the mouth. Of course, you get a big one and he's got a mouthful of teeth. You want to be pretty careful there, too. But, you know, handle the fish as little as possible. Get your hands wet before you handle the fish. Handle them with the net, if at all possible. These fish are pretty stressed out this time of year when they're going up to lay those eggs. So, yeah, we were fishing in a pool below a spawning area, and the fish are just stacked in there staging. These really fish that are probably about to move up and lay their eggs, or had just deposited eggs and moved back down into a little bit deeper water.
Well, that brown trout, and of course there's rainbows and brooks and things in here too, but that brown, now's the time that they spawn. How long does that spawn last usually, 3 or 4 months?
It can last probably 3 months. I mean, we have some special regulations in place, the Game and Fish Commission does, as far as when you can fish. And we have some areas that are seasonal closures, like, you know, we've got brown trout in the White River and North Fork River as well, but you know, there's some regulations here at Cow Shoals on what you can't fish at night certain times of the year, and it's basically designed to give those fish a break and let them. A lot of the spawning activity occurs at night. The fish will move up when they feel safer, and so we regulate the night fishing there at Cow Shoals.
You know, like you said, of course, Chuck was helping Brett learn how to roll cast and teach him a lot of stuff. I think Brett knew some of that already. Look, it didn't take him long to catch them.
It was a good day to practice the roll cast because it was quite windy.
It was.
And it looks like you're getting in on the action.
Thanks to Brett. That was Brett's trip, but he told us, wow.
Well, check this out. We're going to see that again. That's not the fish on the end of your line. That's another one that's stacked up in that pool there.
That's another fish.
Yeah, you'll see your line's going off to the right there, the way we're looking at it, and that fish was way upstream from where your line is.
I was probably just hung up on a rock and just thought that was a fish. But
no, there's a fish there.
Yeah, I know those fish were jumping all day out of the water. And of course, what were we using for bait? I couldn't see it; it was so small.
Well, we're using a little emerger pattern. We switched to one of Chuck's own designed flies. He calls the trout candy. And he actually designed it for steelhead, but it's sort of an egg pattern. Yeah. And when we switched to that, I believe it was just about every cast. We went to it later in the day after they had seen a lot of our other flies, that emerger pattern that we were
That did make a difference too, because you know they kind of slowed down a little bit. And you're right, we switched to that.
Well, we never moved out of this one probably stretch of water. I mean, our drift there, we were casting, letting it drift down, was maybe, you know, 50 feet, 60 feet of river, and we never really moved from that. So a lot of those fish were seeing the flies over and over. So, you know, when it did slow down, Chuck changed the flies out, and it got hot again.
You know, another thing that day, I remember that day we saw, what a beautiful day to be on the river, because we were on there, 3 or 4 hours at the most, and we saw ducks and geese and turkeys and eagle. We saw a bald eagle.
Saw a bald eagle just downstream from us. Saw some Canada geese that flew right over us.
I wanted you to make sure you saw I caught one.
Yeah, no, I could tell what was going on there. Yeah, saw a bunch of turkeys fly down on the far riverbank behind where.
Okay, folks, that's Trey.
Look who gets in on the action now.
Well, Brett sure was a nice guy to let us in on this.
That was nice.
I think his wife
and
actually.
Man, that was
a good
about a 19-inch brown. There.
No, I don't know. I zoomed in as far as I could, Trey, to make it look big.
Yeah, you should have come across to the other side of the river and shown how big it really was.
Hey, Brett was really nice. I know his wife, I think,
Thank you, Brett.
purchased this day for him for his birthday.
Yeah.
And what a great Christmas gift we talked about, you know, a half a day on the river or a day with a Chuck Farnett. You can't beat it. You'll learn a bunch and catch a bunch of fish.
Brett
for
was
sure.
kind enough to let us catch a few fish, but he really he capped the day off nicely here with this last fish. It was the probably the biggest fish of the day.
It was the last one too, wasn't it?
It was the last fish, and it was absolutely gorgeous. You're going to see here in
It was
just
even
a
bigger
second.
than yours. Wow, look at this fish.
Man,
What, 20, 20?
About 20 inches.
20 inches?
That's a 20-inch net, and it pretty much covers the whole thing.
Awesome.
Beautiful fish.
Awesome.